If you'd told me that the highlight of my weekend would be getting unexpectedly pulled onto a dance floor with a stranger at some random wedding, I'd have laughed and asked what you were smoking. But here I am, sitting in the back of a cab, replaying every awkward shuffle and half smile from last night's dance like it was some kind of romantic movie montage. Spoiler, it wasn't exactly smooth, but somehow it felt important. Okay, so let me back up a bit. Weddings aren't really my scene. I mean, I get the appeal. Friends and family coming together, love in the air, fancy outfits, but I usually go as the obligatory plus one, or more often, I dodge them entirely because small talk and forced smiles aren't my jam. Last weekend, though, I found myself in the middle of a sprawling garden venue on the outskirts of the city, staring down at a glass of lukewarm champagne, wondering how I'd ended up on the guest list of some couple I barely knew. See, my cousin Jake was getting married. I say, barely knew, because, well, Jake and I had drifted apart after college. He was always the life of the party, the guy everyone loved, and I was the quiet one in the corner with a book or my phone. We weren't close, but family is family, and I hadn't seen him in years, so I figured I could at least show up, eat some overpriced cake, and dip out early. Simple plan, but then came the dance. Or rather, the part where they announced a fun little twist. Everyone would be randomly assigned a dance partner for the first dance. No picking, no exceptions. I tried to make myself invisible, hoping I'd skate past unnoticed, but no such luck. My name got called, and before I knew it, I was standing there, awkward as hell, scanning the crowd for whoever fate had dumped on me, and there he was. Tall in a way that made me feel like a kid again, with messy dark hair that looked like it had been tousled by the wind and eyes that held a spark of amused curiosity. He smiled, just a quick, confident curl of the lips like he knew this was going to be interesting. "Looks like we're dance partners," he said, his voice calm but warm. I nodded, suddenly feeling like I had been dropped into some indie rom-com scene. His name was Leo. He told me between steps as the band started playing, and he worked in graphic design. We fell into a rhythm that wasn't quite perfect, but it didn't matter. The garden lights cast a soft glow, the air smelled like jasmine and freshly cut grass, and for a moment, all the noise and strangers faded away. Honestly, I'm not usually the type to notice guys like that, or to have any spark with someone at first glance. But there was something about the way he looked at me, like he was seeing through all my awkwardness and instead finding something worth sticking around for. We talked between songs, laughed at our missteps, and just connected. It was weird and unexpected and completely out of my comfort zone. After the dance, I thought maybe that was it, a nice moment, a good story to tell, but nothing more. But as the night wore on, Leo kept showing up, grabbing me a drink, pulling me into the circle of friends, making me feel like I belonged. By the time the last song played, I was already wondering how on earth I was going to fall asleep without replaying that first dance on repeat. So yeah, that night changed a lot more than just my dance skills. And honestly, I still can't believe this is how it started, with a random pairing at someone else's wedding. But sometimes, the best stories come from the moments you never expect. So as the last song faded out and people started gathering their coats and saying their goodbyes, Leo caught my eye from across the room again. I swear, that guy had some kind of radar for finding me in a sea of guests. He waved me over like we'd known each other for years, like he was the steady in a night full of chaos. I wasn't sure whether it was bold or awkward to just drift over to him, but whatever it was, I did it. We found a quieter spot near the garden's edge, where the fairy lights twinkled softly, and the hum from the party felt distant, like background noise to our own little bubble. So Leo started, handing me a fresh drink. "Are you usually this socially graceful at weddings?" I snorted, taking the glass. "Graceful? No awkward and trying not to spill champagne on my shirt?" "Absolutely." He laughed, that low, easy sound that made me want to hear it again. "Same here. I'm usually the guy hiding behind a camera or nursing a beer in the corner." I raised an eyebrow. "You're a photographer?" "Graphic designer mostly, but yeah, I dabble in photography. Helps me see the world a little differently, I guess." He paused, then added, "So what's your story? Besides crashing your cousin's wedding and unexpectedly stealing the dance floor?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of those words. My story wasn't exactly shiny or romantic. I worked a 9-to-5 desk job, liked video games, sometimes wrote music no one heard, and was generally pretty terrible at putting myself out there. I'm not the guy who walks into a room and owns it. I usually blend in, which was fine by me, but with Leo, everything felt different. "I'm Ethan," I said finally, "and I guess I'm just your average guy who somehow ended up dancing like a newborn giraffe tonight." Leo smiled, eyes crinkling. "Ethan, good name. I'm glad you were my newborn giraffe." It was cheesy, I know, but those words cracked something open in me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe there was a chance at something real, something worth risking the usual comfort zone for. We talked for what felt like hours, swapping stories about our childhoods, our passions, the weird quirks that make us who we are. Leo told me about growing up in a small town before moving to the city to chase his dreams. I shared a bit about how I'd always been the safe kid in my family, the one who stayed quiet and didn't cause waves. It wasn't a sob story or a drama fest, just honest bits of our lives laid bare under the soft glow of string lights. At one point, he reached out, brushing a stray hair behind my ear. It was such a small gesture, but it sent a jolt straight through me. My heart sped up, and I felt that familiar mix of excitement and nerves that I hadn't realized I'd been missing so much. "Ethan, I know this might sound crazy, but I'm really glad we got paired together tonight," Leo said quietly. "I don't usually believe in those star-crossed moments, but maybe I'm starting to." I bit my lip, trying to steady myself. "Yeah, me too." Just then, the group started to break up, the party winding down. Reality was slowly creeping back in, telling me this was probably going to be a one-night thing. Something cute to remember, but nothing more. But Leo surprised me again. "Hey, I don't want this to be the end. How about we grab coffee tomorrow? No pressure, just talk." I wanted to say yes so badly it felt like my throat was closing up. After a beat, I managed to nod. "Yeah, I'd like that." He grinned, that same confident smile from the dance floor. "Great. It's a date." Walking back to my car later that night, I kept replaying everything. The dance, the laughs, the way he'd looked at me like I mattered. For once, I wasn't worried about what people thought or how awkward I might seem. Instead, I was curious. Curious if this could be the start of something new. Funny how a random dance partner at a stranger's wedding could shake up your entire world. The next morning, I woke up with that weird mix of excitement and nerves that feels like butterflies doing a tap dance in your stomach. I hadn't felt this way about, well, anyone in a long time. Usually, I'd sleep in, scroll through my phone, maybe binge a few episodes of whatever show I was obsessed with at the moment. But today, all I could think about was meeting Leo for coffee. I arrived early at the little cafe he'd suggested, this cozy spot tucked between a bookstore and a record shop in one of those neighborhoods where the city feels like it's breathing a little slower. The kind of place where baristas actually care about your latte art, and the playlist is a carefully curated mix of indie and throwbacks. I was halfway through deciding if it was socially acceptable to peek out the window every few minutes when I saw him. Leo, looking just as relaxed as the place around him, holding 2 coffees and a shy smile that instantly made me feel like I'd come to the right place. "Hey," he said, sliding 1 cup across the table toward me. "I hope you like hazelnut cream. You nailed it," I admitted, taking a sip. The warmth of the coffee was the perfect contrast to the cool morning air that was still clinging to the city streets outside. We settled into an easy rhythm, like we were picking up a conversation we'd left off, rather than starting something new. It was comforting and kind of surprising. I don't know if I was just starved for connection or if Leo really had that effect, but I found myself opening up more than usual. Not just the surface stuff, but the kind of things I usually kept tucked away. My doubts, my fears about the future, the quiet loneliness I'd gotten used to. Leo listened, really listened. No interrupting, no trying to fix things. Just a steady presence, nodding along, eyes locked on mine, giving me the space to be honest without feeling judged. At one point, I caught him watching me with this look that made my heart skip. It wasn't lustful or desperate. It was gentle, sincere. "You know," he said quietly, Most people don't talk about that stuff on a first coffee date. I shrugged, feeling a little embarrassed, but also kind of proud. Yeah, well, maybe I'm not most people. He laughed softly. I like that. We spent hours wandering through the neighborhood afterward, ducking into shops, sharing stories about the weirdest things we'd ever done, and laughing at how awkward we both felt when it came to dating. At one point, we found ourselves sitting on a bench in a small park, the city noise muffled by trees and the distant hum of traffic. Leo turned toward me and said, "It's crazy to think we were strangers just yesterday." I nodded. Yeah, and now it feels like I've known you way longer. He smiled, a little shy this time. I don't want this to be a one-time thing, Ethan. His voice was soft but full of hope. Me neither, I thought, but I just said, I don't want that either. We ended the day with a promise to see each other again soon. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Over the following weeks, Leo and I settled into something that was both new and familiar. We met for dinners that stretched late into the night, shared playlists, and challenged each other to try things out of our comfort zones, like salsa dancing, a skill neither of us had, but both found hilarious attempts at. He was patient when I stumbled, and I couldn't help but admire the way he lit up when he talked about his art projects or the little victories he had at work. There were moments, of course, where the nerves came back, when I caught myself wondering if he'd really want to keep seeing me, or if this was just a fun distraction for him. But those moments were getting fewer, replaced by a quiet confidence that maybe, just maybe, we were building something worth holding on to. One night, a little over a month after that wedding, Leo invited me over to his apartment for dinner. It was cozy and filled with the kind of clutter that told stories. Sketchbooks stacked on the coffee table, prints on the walls, half-finished projects scattered around. It felt like stepping into his world, and I liked it. After dinner, we moved to the couch with glasses of wine. The conversation drifted toward more personal stuff, the kind of talk where defenses come down and you realize you're not as alone as you thought. I'm really glad you didn't bail after that first dance, Leo said, tracing circles on the back of my hand. I was tempted, I admitted, but something about you made me want to stick around. He smiled, leaning closer. Me too. Then, just like that, he kissed me, soft and tentative at first, like testing the waters, and then with more certainty. I felt my whole body respond. The nervous excitement, the warmth, the way everything felt a little sharper, a little more real. Pulling back, he whispered, I've been wanting to do that since the wedding. I laughed, breathless. Me too. It wasn't perfect or like some grand romantic scene in a movie. It was messy, a little awkward, but utterly genuine. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about a random dance or a chance meeting. It was about two people finding each other in the middle of the chaos, ready to see where this could go. So yeah, that's how it started. Me, a wallflower who never really believed in fate, and Leo, the guy who showed up at a stranger's wedding and changed everything. And honestly, I'm looking forward to every step of this dance. After that night, things between Leo and me started to feel less like a whirlwind and more like something steady, like a rhythm we were finding together. It was strange, in the best way. I wasn't used to feeling so comfortable with someone so quickly. Usually my brain would be running through all the worst-case scenarios, my stomach twisting with nerves. But with him, it was like I could finally breathe without holding back. A couple of weeks after the kiss, we decided to make it official, or as official as two guys who hadn't quite figured out what official meant could be. We sat on his couch one Sunday afternoon, the sunlight streaming through the windows, casting patterns on the floor. Leo was fiddling with his sketch pad while I sipped on some terrible instant coffee I'd brought over. So I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart was racing, "How do you want to do this? Like us?" Leo looked up, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I've been thinking about that too. I guess I just want to keep doing what we're doing. No pressure, no labels if we don't want them. Just seeing where it goes. I nodded, relieved. Yeah, I don't really know what to call it, but I like it. I like you. He reached out and took my hand, intertwining our fingers. I like you too, Ethan. That simple exchange felt like a new beginning. We didn't need to have all the answers right away. We just had each other, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, We started carving out routines, little rituals that made this whole terrifying, beautiful thing feel real. We'd grab coffee on lazy Saturday mornings, explore new neighborhoods, and sometimes just hang out in silence, comfortable in each other's presence. I introduced him to my favorite dive bar, where the bartender knew my order by heart, and he showed me his favorite hiking trails, places where the city noise gave way to the sound of wind and birds. One evening, we went out to dinner at a tiny Italian place Leo loved, the kind of place where the owner greets you like family, and the pasta tastes like it was made by your grandmother. We sat across from each other, sharing a bottle of wine and stories about our childhoods, how I grew up in a small town, always the quiet kid, and how Leo's family was loud and chaotic but full of love. Between bites, he caught my eye and said, "I never thought a stupid wedding dance could lead to this." I laughed. "Me neither. It's kind of crazy how life throws those curveballs." He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. I'm glad it did. That night, as we walked back to the subway, our hands found each other again, fingers lacing naturally. The city buzzed around us, but in that moment, it felt like we were in our own bubble. There were still moments when doubt crept in, when I wondered if I was moving too fast or if Leo felt the same intensity I did. I wasn't used to feeling so vulnerable, and sometimes it scared me. But every time I looked at him, all those fears seemed to fade. One rainy afternoon, we found ourselves stuck in Leo's apartment because the weather was too nasty to go out. We cooked dinner together. Well, I mostly tried not to burn the garlic bread while he made a killer pasta sauce. The kitchen was a mess, with flour dusting the counters and sauce splattered on the walls, but we were laughing so hard it didn't matter. After eating, we settled onto the couch, the rain tapping against the windows. Leo pulled me close, resting his head on my shoulder. "You know," he said softly, "I didn't think I'd find someone like this, someone I can be myself around." I smiled, feeling the warmth of his words seep into me. "Me too. I didn't think I'd find anyone who gets me." He kissed the top of my head. "We're lucky." "Yeah," I said, "we really are." But as great as things were, life wasn't perfect. Work got hectic for me, and Leo's freelance gigs were unpredictable. We had days when texting was our only connection, and nights when exhaustion made conversation hard. There were misunderstandings and moments when we had to remind each other why this was worth it. One night, after a long day that left me drained, I snapped at Leo over something minor. I hated how tense I felt after, the way my words hung heavy between us. He didn't say much, just looked at me with those patient eyes that made me want to fix everything. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean to take it out on you." Leo shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "It's okay. We're still figuring this out." That simple acceptance made me realize that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about weathering the storms together, learning to dance through the messy parts. A few weeks later, Leo surprised me with tickets to a dance workshop. Salsa this time, not quite as terrifying as the first. We stumbled through the steps, laughing at our mistakes and celebrating the small victories. At one point, he pulled me close and said, "See, we're getting better." I grinned. "Yeah, maybe next time I won't step on your toes." He winked. "I'll hold you to that." As we drove home afterward, the city lights blurring past, I realized how much I'd changed since that dance at the wedding. I was more open, more willing to take chances. And it was all because of a moment that seemed random, but turned out to be the start of everything. Leo reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thanks for saying yes," he said softly. I looked at him, heart full. "Thanks for asking." And just like that, the guy who was once a stranger at a wedding became the person I couldn't wait to see again. Our story was still unfolding, but with each step, each laugh, each quiet moment, I knew we were dancing towards something real. Months passed, and what started as a random dance at a wedding became this steady, comforting thing I couldn't imagine my life without. Leo and I had settled into a kind of rhythm, not just the salsa steps where I still managed to step on his toes now and then, but the everyday stuff. We learned how to navigate each other's quirks and moods, how to argue without hurting, and how to laugh at ourselves when things got messy. One Friday night, I found myself standing in front of my closet, trying to decide what to wear for a date with Leo. It was a simple plan, dinner and maybe a movie, but for some reason, I was nervous. Not about Leo, but about me. About how much I was starting to care. About how much of myself I was willing to put out there. Eventually, I settled on a shirt that wasn't too casual, but not too formal either. I wanted to look like I cared, but not like I was trying too hard. Leo always said my natural awkwardness was kind of endearing, but still, I wanted tonight to be special. I arrived at his apartment a little early and found him waiting by the door, looking effortlessly handsome in his usual way. Messy hair, a soft smile, and those eyes that made me forget how to breathe sometimes. "Hey," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt like home. "Hey," I replied, trying not to melt into his chest. We walked hand in hand to our favorite little bistro, the one with the flickering candles and the menu full of things neither of us had tried. Over wine and shared plates, the conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from work frustrations to ridiculous movies we secretly loved. Then, out of nowhere, Leo's expression shifted. His eyes grew serious, but not in a heavy way. More like he was about to say something important. "What's up?" I asked, leaning in. He took a breath and looked at me like he was trying to find the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about where this is going." My heart skipped. I'd been wondering the same thing, but hearing it out loud made it real. "I like where this is going," I said softly, "but I don't want to rush anything either." He nodded. "Me neither, but I also don't want to ignore how much I care about you. More than I expected." I smiled, feeling warmth spread in my chest. "I care about you too, Leo. A lot." There was a pause, that thick electric silence that happens when you're both waiting to see if the other feels the same way. Then he reached across the table and took my hand, holding it gently. "I'm scared sometimes," he confessed. "Scared that I'll mess this up, or that I'm moving too fast." "Me too," I admitted, "but I think it's worth the risk." He squeezed my hand, then leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. "We'll figure it out. Together." That night, walking back to his place under the soft glow of streetlights, I felt like we were stepping into something new, something that felt as exciting as it did uncertain. But with Leo by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Work got busy for both of us, but we made time for each other whenever we could. Weekend hikes, late-night talks, and yes, more dancing. Our salsa moves improved, though I still wasn't winning any awards, and Leo teased me mercilessly about my creative spins. One evening, he surprised me with tickets to a gallery opening, a collection of local artists he'd been following. Walking through the space, surrounded by colors and shapes that inspired him, I saw a side of Leo the first hadn't known before. His passion, his intensity when he talked about art, made me fall for him all over again. At one point, he pulled me aside and said quietly, "I want you to see this." He led me to a corner where a painting caught the light, a swirl of blues and golds, abstract but somehow familiar. He explained how it reminded him of the first dance we shared, the chaos, the awkwardness, the beauty. I looked at him, feeling a lump in my throat. "That dance changed everything for me," I said. "You changed everything." He smiled, brushing a hand over my cheek. "We changed everything." Life wasn't perfect, of course. There were moments of doubt, of distance when work or stress got in the way. But every time we hit a bump, we came back to each other, stronger for it. One rainy Saturday, we found ourselves curled up on his couch, watching old movies and sharing a blanket. I felt his hand find mine, fingers intertwining like they always did, and I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. As the credits rolled, Leo turned to me with that shy smile he saved just for me. "I'm glad I asked you to dance that night," he whispered. "Me too," I said, pulling him close. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the soft rain and the glow of the TV, I realized something important. Sometimes, the best things in life come when you step out of your comfort zone, when you let yourself be seen, when you say yes to the unexpected. Because sometimes, a stranger at a wedding can turn into the person who changes everything. It was about 6 months after that wedding dance when Leo and I found ourselves back at the same garden venue. Jake and his new husband were celebrating their first anniversary with a small gathering. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family. Somehow, standing there felt different this time. Not awkward or uncertain, but comfortable. Familiar. Leo slipped his hand into mine as we watched the sun dip low behind the trees, casting golden light over the guests. I caught his eye and smiled, remembering how nervous I'd been the first time we met, how unsure I was about even showing up. Crazy to think how far we've come, I said quietly. He nodded, squeezing my hand. All because of one dance. We didn't need to say more. The music started, a slow, easy song that invited people to the floor. A few couples took the bait, spinning and swaying under the twinkling lights. Then Leo looked at me, that familiar, mischievous glint in his eye. "Dance with me?" I laughed softly. "You never miss an opportunity, do you?" He grinned, pulling me up without waiting for an answer. As we moved together, not perfectly, but in sync enough, all the old nerves melted away. The awkwardness turned into laughter, the hesitations into quiet confidence. In that moment, it wasn't about impressing anyone or living up to some idea of what we should be. It was just us, two imperfect people learning how to dance through life together. Afterward, as we stepped away from the crowd, Leo paused, looking at me with a seriousness that made my heart catch. "There's no one else I'd rather do this with," he said simply. I smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond words. Me neither. Standing there in the fading light, hand in hand, I realized that sometimes the best moments come from the unexpected, like being assigned as dance partners at a stranger's wedding. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was the start of something real, and that, more than anything, felt like home.